Quitting alcohol is close to impossible if you make the mistake that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video today. Now, I made this mistake. It took me 10 years of trial and error and failure after failure after failure until things finally clicked for me just over 3 years ago, but I made this mistake. So I'm not trying to criticize you or hurt you or call you out or anything like that. What I'm gonna do is I'm really gonna break this mistake down so you don't need to make it, because I don't want you to make the mistake that I made that kept me stuck for such a long time. Now, it's not just me that's made this mistake. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of other drinkers do this exact same thing. But when we can break it down and overcome it, and you can address it by using the solution that I'm gonna give you in this video, that's when everything changes. That's when you can get into that state of mind where you don't want to drink anymore. It's like that switch where you can just kind of make the decision, make the commitment, go all in and get on with your life. So listen, you guys will absolutely love this video. And if you actually want my personal help stopping drinking and you want to go through the Sober Clear program where we use coaching and the first principles thinking, a mental model to reframe the way you view alcohol, then make sure to click the link in the description. There'll be a short video for you to watch that explains how I work with people, how I help my clients, and how all of that stuff works. And then you can actually book a call with me and we can see if this program may be a good fit for you. So click the link in the description for a little bit more details on the Sober Clear program. So what is this big mistake? Well, the big mistake is doing something called reasoning from analogy. Now, I have spoken about this on the channel before, but I've not spoken about it for a long time and I've not really addressed it directly. So I want to go a bit deeper in this video, especially for the newer viewers, and really break down this mistake. Because once you can understand this, this is when you will start seeing alcohol in a different way. Because it starts with seeing what you're actually doing wrong. So reasoning from analogy is a mental shortcut, and it's something that we do every single day. And it can also be classed as like using common sense. And most of the time, reasoning from analogy is a perfectly good way to draw conclusions and do things. Now, so many people, when it comes to alcohol, reason from analogy. If we think about common sense and alcohol, most people see alcohol in moderation as a good thing. They see it as something that enhances their life, it adds value, it just improves things in some kind of way. And that's how most people see alcohol. So if you try to stop drinking and you go out into the world and tell somebody that you want to stop drinking, it's very likely that the people that you talk to and the people that you tell about your decision, they will have reasoned from analogy on this certain topic, and they will see alcohol as a good thing. So then when you tell them this, they're kind of going to look at you like, why would you want to do that? Why don't you just moderate, cut down, cut back, and so on? But does reasoning from analogy really work? There have been thousands of examples from history where reasoning from analogy was just outright wrong. People just reasoned from analogy, they used common sense, and then they did the most atrocious things. I don't know what year it was, but you can remember when they used to tie a stone to witches and like throw them off a bridge, and if the lady with the stone tied to her got into the water and sank, she wasn't a witch. But if she didn't sink, then she was a witch, right? How many people got slaughtered because everybody thought that this was how you could distinguish if somebody was a witch or not? Nobody ever thought to kind of question it and say, well, wait a minute, is this really working? People did this for years. Another example is the Aztecs, and what the Aztecs used to do is they used to chop the heads off people, give it to the sun god, roll it down I can't remember the name of the structures, those kind of like those pyramid things, but they would roll it down those structures, and then what they thought would happen is the sun would keep going across the sky. Nobody ever thought to say, well, hang on, if we stop this sacrifice, what happens? No, everybody was using common sense at the time, and this crazy thing kept happening for years. We can also use smoking cigarettes as an example. The adverts of smoking, they used to say that smoking was good for your health, that it wasn't a bad thing, and that was common sense. And how many people got hooked on cigarettes? How many people died as a result of reasoning from analogy when it came to cigarettes? And when it comes to alcohol, that is the world that we live in right now. Everybody has reasoned from analogy. Now, this is generally not a bad thing, because not everybody has a drinking problem. Not everybody becomes a problem drinker. Not everybody actually has to solve the problem of being a drinker with a problem. However, I did have a drinking problem. And because the world that we live in sees alcohol as a good thing, and because everybody else has reasoned from analogy, when I go out to the world and say, how do I stop drinking? I'm met with a whole range of opinions. Why would you want to stop? Why don't you moderate? Why don't you just have one or two? Drink at the weekends, cut back. You know, maybe you're an alcoholic, you've got to go to meetings, maybe you need to see a therapist, revisit the past. And because so many people will just drink for their whole life without really questioning things, they don't need to not reason from analogy. They can just keep doing this forever, and that's it. However, if you want to solve a specific problem, reasoning from analogy will just not work. If there's something very specific that you need to solve, there has to be a different way. And reasoning from analogy just will not cut it. So the solution from reasoning from analogy is reasoning from first principles. Now, obviously I've spoken about this on the channel a lot, but I'm going to break it down for you and explain how it works, because I get people asking this a lot, like how does it work? What is it? So let me break it down for you. So when you're trying to solve a specific problem, you ignore common sense. You don't listen to the average person in the street that's going to tell you, you know, this is how you do that. You just don't do that. Instead, you break things down from its component parts. So what do I mean by this? Well, there's a very famous example of Elon Musk and what he talks about when it comes to reasoning from first principles. Now, there's an example of when he wanted to build a rocket for SpaceX, he went out to society and he asked society, how much does this rocket cost to build? And this is where he was told that it was $65 million to build a rocket. Now, let's say that this was a very minor decision in his life and it was a bit of advice that he got from somebody and he just took it at face value, applied that advice, and then got on to the next problem that he wanted to solve. If he did that, no problem. But because this was a big problem, talking about millions and millions of dollars that could be spent, to him, this was worth dissecting. This was worth applying first principles thinking to. So instead of using common sense, he then broke it down from first principles, which means that he just basically broke down a rocket into its component parts, where he looked at the staffing, the materials, the cost of the warehouse, setting up the company, all of these different parts, and he just broke them down and looked at the individual cost of them, put them back together, and worked out that a rocket would just cost a fraction of the price if he was to do it himself. Now, because this was a big problem that he wanted to solve, it was worth spending the extra time to apply first principles thinking, because it's very time consuming. Using first principles thinking requires a lot of thought, a lot of research, can often require a lot of introspection. But we can do this exact thing with alcohol. Now, this is exactly what I teach in the Sober Clear program. I teach people how to think this way, using this mental model. But that being said, it takes a long time for you to do this. It took me 10 years. 10 years of reasoning from analogy, looking at all these mistakes that I was making, and then just breaking them down one by one. However, because this problem of drinking was so important for me to solve, I had to do this. I had to reason from first principles. I had to break down everything that I thought that I knew about alcohol to create this new worldview. And to me, that was absolutely worth it. Now, for many people out there, even viewers of this channel, maybe it's not worth it for you. Maybe you want to reason from analogy, use common sense, and just keep drinking. But for me, I knew that I had to find another way. I had to put a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dedication into really understanding the problem and looking at all of the component parts. And the way that you can do this is through watching videos like this. You can read books that are out there that talk about alcohol, but they give you an alternative viewpoint on the topic. Rather than giving you like common sense, they give you alternative viewpoints. Because there are many great thinkers out there that have really thought about this topic and just created new conclusions where they see alcohol as a drug that does nothing for them. They don't see it as a good time. They don't see it as having fun. And I mean, there's thousands of people that watch this channel that I see your comments all the time. People are saying that this mental model did it for me. That was it. Once I'd applied this, I was done. And it's really just being an independent thinker. It's a deliberate style of thinking that you apply and break things down and then put them back together to create new conclusions. And like I said, if you want my help applying this style of thinking, make sure to click the link in the description to learn a little bit more about how I can help you apply that. But maybe you don't need my help. Maybe you're okay doing it on your own, putting the pieces together, watching these videos on this channel, reading the books, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries. Maybe you're okay doing that on your own. And if that's you, awesome, go for it. Because you can do this, right? You can do this. It took me 10 years of hundreds of failed attempts until things clicked. But eventually they did. And it happened because I didn't give up. I tried and tried and tried and tried again. So don't give up trying. Keep putting the pieces together. Hope this video was helpful. Have a great day.